This visualizing density video is designed to help inform Yarmouth's housing conversation as part of the comprehensive plan update. This video highlights the current mix of housing in Yarmouth, takes a closer look at the housing in the village, provides a short history of how we got to the current mix, and interviews a number of residents about Yarmouth housing. We hope you will come away with a better understanding of Yarmouth's housing options today and for the future. As part of the comprehensive plan public engagement process, we held a guided walk with Yarmouth's Affordable Housing Committee and the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee to show the range of housing options and current density that exists in the area surrounding Latchstring Park. The area covered in the walk is part of the Upper Village Historic District.
The whole route is just less than a mile, and we'll be stopping to hear from some property owners along our way. There's many examples throughout the town of historic and more modern homes with more than one household, and there's a precedent for it to date back to the town's shipbuilding history, mill worker tenements, and seasonal recreational history. The goal of today's walk is to highlight the different types of housing within our village center, particularly amongst historic structures that exemplify so much of the town's cultural values of preserving the village, maintaining a vibrant Main Street, and having a diverse housing stock and population, all values that were expressed in our 2010 plan.
As you can see from this map from the current comprehensive plan update, there is some housing diversity beyond the village too. The historic housing diversity in Yarmouth dates to the colonial and post-colonial periods' British settlement patterns of land claims, subdividing and clearing land, pushing inland and along the Royal River Valley, following industry and economic opportunity. At the Lower Village Historic District, or Falls Village, which was centered around the shipbuilding industry, these homes are still visible on Spring Street, Marina Road, East Main Street, Pleasant Street, and Lower Main Street. To the mill workers' tenement buildings on Bridge Street, today's Royal River Manufacturing Historic District, and the Upper Village Historic District, bisected by the railroads in 1848 and 1849, where land speculation spurred South Street subdivision in 1848 from farmland to housing for merchants and sea captains. Today, housing and all land use is governed by zoning. Each zoning district has different standards for lot size, setbacks, and density, which limits the number of dwelling units per acre. An outcome of the 2010 Comprehensive Plan was to adopt the Character-Based Development Code, the CBDC, the goal of which is to create an environment that, quote, exemplifies the historic qualities of Yarmouth and values the healthy balance of uses that comprise the village center, end quote. Current zoning emphasizes single-family detached homes in Yarmouth, but if we take a closer look, we can see that many single-family looking homes actually have multiple units, offering a mix of housing options that often couldn't be built under current zoning. Let's dive into what housing types and densities currently exist in town. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs, are independent housing units, typically, but not always, created on a single household lot through remodeling or expanding the existing home or constructed as a detached dwelling. Current zoning in Yarmouth allows ADUs as attached, detached, and within the principal structure, which must be a single household home. There are roughly 51 ADUs in town, some of which have been incorporated into historic houses.
We've always had renters. We've never known the people who lived there prior to them, moving in. And we've had all kinds of people who've lived there, and so a really broad spectrum of people and backgrounds, and it's been a great experience.
This is a new detached ADU resembling a historic carriage house. Here's an attached ADU over a garage on a property in the Royal River Manufacturing District.
When we got here, there was still a sliding barn door. So that space right there had a sliding barn door, and every time the renter had to come in, the steps were not there. Because a lot of the old barns just had a slope up, open up the barn door and drive the tractor in and out or the car in and out. So we put the steps in and the railing and got rid of the barn door because it was really heavy. But we wanted to keep the barn door space. And then we also created a little mudroom for them. Before, you would go into the barn door, and then there was like a little passageway into the whole first floor of the barn that was storage for us. We actually turned that into our space that we access from another side. And there's a staircase that just goes up straight from that door.
About 100 duplexes, or 2 units, can be found in the historic districts and beyond. Some are preserved historic homes that have long been 2 units. Some are more recently converted, like 81 East Elm Street.
This building there are 2 units. When we purchased it, it was a single-family residence. We live next door, 75 East Elm Street. We've been there since 1984. They said we bought it in 2006. We kept the character of the town and the neighborhood foremost in our mind, I guess, when we did do our renovation. I live next door in a house that's not quite as old, but again, late 1800s. We've been improving and renovating that for almost 40 years at this point. We kept the trim pattern, window patterns. The house does have vinyl siding on it, which was slightly painful, but I'm also glad I haven't had to repaint it for 4 times since we've been renting it out. On the inside of the house, we actually used quite a bit of older materials for interior doors, staircase railings that actually came out of the Black Point Inn when they tore down one of the buildings there.
Some duplexes are from more recent decades, like 50s, 60s, and 70s, and some are new additions, like 1 South Street.
The previous owners did build this, and I think they did try very hard to help it to fit into with our house and then with the neighborhood in general. So I don't think the historic preservation ordinance was in place when this was built, but they still tried very hard to have it fit in. So we bought the house from the Roy family. Travis Roy, most people in Maine know Travis. We bought it from his parents. They had lived here for many years. Travis and his sister grew up here, and then when Travis had his accident, there was a barn here next to the house as part of the property, and they tore it down and built this addition as a handicapped accessible apartment for Travis, with a room upstairs for a nurse if he had one living there. So it was pretty new when we bought it. It was in good shape. Leroy, Travis's dad, told us as we were looking at the house to buy it, he said, yep, we built this for Travis right after his accident. We figured this is where we'll live for the rest of our life, and Travis will live here with us. And so we made a nice apartment for him, and he said, and he was here for 6 months, and then he went back to college. So they didn't need it, and they were very happy about that. But and they were then going to sell and move to their vacation home. But it worked out well for us, as I said, because my father was old and ill at that point, and he did live there for 3.5 years and needed a handicapped accessible place, so it was perfect.
There's a partition between their section and our section, and we just had to close that off and insulate it, sound insulate it when we had tenants, and that was really it. We did change the electrical, so it's 2 different electrical meters. That was the only major things we had to do.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing I want to point out too is that this is a wheelchair ramp, and the designers did a great job. I don't think most people would even realize there's a wheelchair ramp behind that.
Right. It looks like a porch.
That fence, yeah.
It's great. It doesn't look like a wheelchair ramp, but it is. And my dad used to use a walker for a while, and then he used a wheelchair, and it was perfect for that. And yeah, the opening between the 2 houses was open. It was a nice archway opening when we moved in, and then Chuck is a builder, so he just sealed it off. It's perfect. And we don't hear. I mean, it's very quiet. We have a great family that lives there, and they're quiet, but still, it really feels both very private.
There are also many single household looking homes that actually have 3 or more units in them when you take a closer look. There are about 17 triplexes in town, like the former mill worker boarding houses in the Royal River Manufacturing District. There are examples in the Lower Village Historic District's houses for workers of the shipbuilding industry, and in the Upper Village for workers in the mills, potteries, and tanneries. And there are examples beyond the village too. Bridge Street has a number of 2 to 3 unit properties.
My wife and I live here. We raised our 3 sons here, and there's been a number of tenants who have lived in here with us, and it's been a very positive experience. There's 3 units here. There's a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom. So there's a sort of Papa Bear, Mama Bear, Baby Bear setup here. And the building was originally designed symmetrically as two houses with a party wall joined, so like townhouses. It was built that way originally. The previous owners had modified it to include 1 more small apartment. Have not changed the structural layout of anything here, but have just been sort of upkeeping the house and modifying it as we've been living here. We like community and we like living with people and having people nearby. The house was built originally as a symmetric duplex, and that two sisters occupied it, and they were, we believe, daughters of the Loring family, who were some of the original settlers in this corner of Yarmouth. Previous owner that lived in our unit, his name was Herbie Johnson, and he was a musical instrument maker, and he tied flies for a side gig. He was a well-known and well-loved character of the community, and the list goes on. There's more, but Herbie's name is still on a nameplate on our door, and we don't want to get rid of it because Herbie's still got some claim to the space.
There are approximately 13 homes with 4 to 7 dwelling units. The majority of these old homes were converted to multi-unit dwellings decades ago and cannot be replicated under current zoning, which only allows conversion of single household dwellings up to 3 dwelling units. 366 Main Street is unique in that it was originally built as a grocery store around 1945 and has been 4 to 5 dwelling units since 1981. Newer multifamily buildings, like the Mill Point Apartments, and modern rehabilitations, like the Shepley and Weld townhomes, provide housing options in slightly larger complexes while emulating historic architecture. Outside of the village, a number of condominium developments can be found with clusters of newer multiplexes, those with 3 to 8 units attached in a group, that are contained subdivisions on larger parcels with clusters of attached homes surrounded by open spaces. These can be found in the rural residential district, the lower density residential district, and the medium density residential district. There are also a few mixed-use commercial and residential buildings with apartments above or behind storefronts or offices, like at newer 350 Route 1 and on Main Street, that have 2 to 7 apartments. This used to be more common in the village, but many buildings have become offices or professional buildings since the 2010 comp plan.
I would just love to see more shops and restaurants in town open from, Rosemont down to this way. I know COVID, we took a hit, but now that everybody's out and about again, I really would love to see more places opening up, especially for lunch. I have 12 employees on any given day that are sitting at a desk, and we hate getting in the car to go get lunch. We'd love to just be able to walk everywhere. So I would love to see that. We're working on doing some retail in here. So for me, it's just making sure the road is safe and the sidewalks are safe to walk on. But I feel like we have that.
There are 10 properties with more than 8 dwelling units, and they vary in form too. Tucked into other corners of Yarmouth are a number of residential developments and Yarmouth's senior housing community. There are even historic homes that offer 8 or more apartments. From newer rental dwelling units dating from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s that are 2 stories and detached, to senior affordable housing rental homes like Bartlett Circle and Bartlett Woods, which are in walking distance of the village.
Avesta's mission is to promote and provide affordable housing for people in need, and we do that all throughout southern and central Maine as well as New Hampshire. That's really what drives us, to make sure that there is housing for all people that might need it. We have 28 apartment homes in this building. They're primarily 1-bedrooms. We have a few 2-bedrooms as well. And in terms of the history, this site was available behind Bartlett Circle, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to, utilize this land to provide more needed housing in the area, and we're able to add this building at the time. The property is entirely affordable housing, and it is for residents 55 and older. One challenge that we have with many communities in Maine is really limited land availability. So when there is land that we can access to provide affordable housing, we want to try to create a model of affordable housing where we can house a number of people to meet that demand in the community. So having a multi-story building that is designed in such a way that it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood allows us to house more people on that site. It also allows them that sense of community that you really only get in a building like that, where they are interacting with their neighbors all the time. They're able to share that community space in the building. We design all the buildings with great ADA access, so elevator access, ADA apartments that are set up for folks that might need particular mobility accommodations. And it's really great and easy to do that in a multi-story, multifamily building.
There are also historic homes that were originally multi-unit or were converted decades ago, like 95 West Elm Street.
The house was built as a single family, I think in 1890, and most of the front part is not original, it's vinyl. There's actually windows up top that are still there that were covered up by vinyl. In the back it's still painted. That peak at the top with the window, that is original, and it looks it. But it's 9 units. There's one in the front, kind of to the breakout. There's a second one, townhouse style in the middle, a third one in the back, and then there's 6 back in the carriage house.
Yarmouth's housing also includes homes like the historic Coastal Manor, which was adapted to provide a home for residents needing skilled nursing care. While there are also businesses, senior assisted living residences provide opportunities for seniors to age in Yarmouth if they need to downsize or need additional care. Choices in housing is key to providing housing that is affordable to people of all income levels and meets needs in different stages of life. From Capital A affordable, that is government subsidized, like Yarmouth's senior housing at Bartlett Circle, to private homeowners offering lower rents.
I don't like the idea of just kind of hiding away all the affordable housing in back apartments or places that you can't see. I'd like us to celebrate some affordable housing and have some visible affordable housing. And ADUs can be visible, they can be hidden, but I hope that this tour isn't just about how can we tuck housing away and not really know that it's another apartment.
Smaller infill lots can also be a way to have more affordable housing in town, ideally with smaller houses.
So we're here on at the intersection of Hillside and Bates, and a really interesting area. I mean, this corner here has changed a ton just in the past couple of years. This is the original home on this lot, and as many people who are involved can attest, it was recently subdivided into 3 different lots. These 2 new homes built, and then Rachel and her husband recently finished restoring, or in the process, pretty far along. They made a lot of progress in the past few months, which is exciting to see. So I think what makes this interesting to us in terms of visualizing density, obviously each of these 3 homes is a single family home, but we previously had a single family home on actually fairly small lot, a third of an acre. Now we've got 3 single family homes, so 3 families sharing this one lot. Each lot is, I think your lot, Rachel, is 0.12, and then 0.11 and 0.16. So split fairly evenly, and we've really tripled the density, but really it feels like it's filled in the character.
Not only does the rental enable somebody to live here who wants to rent, but it also helped us to be able to stay in town.
Living in a historical house is rich. If you're sort of interested in history and sort of living with history, each of these spaces, each of the apartments has something that's original and not quite up to current standards, but a wonderful example of being able to live with something that's really old and historic.
I mean, I would love to see it all over Route 1, where there's businesses and then housing above. I don't know why we don't have that. We need homes. We need places for people to live. There could be so much more happening in town to keep people here. And why does anyone go to Portland to buy anything when hopefully we should have it here in town?
I really like the idea of ADUs as a tool to help us diversify and increase our housing stock in town. I think it's one tool among many.
If we only make small units as our kind of affordable housing units or rental housing units, that doesn't give options for families and whatnot. There needs to be the ability to have kind of transitory housing, but there also needs to give people who can't afford to own a place to be somewhere 10 years, 15 years, or their entire lives if that's what works for them.
This is a great town. I mean, it's got a lot to offer, and I feel fortunate to, find some good tenants.
I think we've had a really good array of properties to think about how we can do density and how we are doing. It's not even how we can, it's how we are doing. And so we can build on this. There's really good examples to help us visualize what it is that we're trying to do.
We're really fortunate. It's such a great location here. Residents really love this location. There's parking for everyone, either on this site or we have a few parking spaces next door at the property here at Bartlett Circle as well. It's really just a great location that folks love living.
Instead of seeing density as a change in direction for Yarmouth, it's actually working to create and recreate what already makes this town great. And that I think what people, when they walk through these neighborhoods, know that it feels just intuitively like a great place to be. And a lot of it is because the density, the walkability, that it feels like there's a lot of people here and that it's a tight-knit community.
We hope you enjoyed exploring Yarmouth's housing stock with us. To learn more about the town's housing and land use, check out the town's website and the comprehensive plan.